The moment I heard a man's voice say, "She's finally here, outside room 714, I thought my marriage was over. I had followed my wife for only one reason. For 6 years, she had never lied to me. Until that Thursday. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 39 years old, and I own a small home renovation business in Colorado. If someone had told me a month earlier that I'd be standing in the hallway of a five-star hotel, hiding behind an ice machine while listening to my wife's voice through a hotel door, I would have laughed. Emily wasn't that kind of woman. She hated lies. She hated drama. She was a person who reminded me to call my mother every Sunday. She cried when stray dogs got hurt. She still kept every birthday card I'd ever given her. That's why the lie didn't make sense. It started with something so small that most husbands would have ignored it. She said she was working late. Nothing unusual, except that her office had been closed for remodeling since Monday. I knew because I dropped her off there myself. When I asked about it, she smiled too quickly. They reopened today. It sounded believable, but something about the way she avoided my eyes bothered me. I didn't argue. I simply nodded. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I thought she was cheating. Because my instincts that had protected me in business for nearly 20 years, kept whispering, something isn't right. 3 days later, she said she had another late meeting. Instead of going home, I followed her. I hated myself for doing it. Every red light gave me another chance to turn around. But I didn't. She drove across town, past downtown, past her office, past everything that made sense. Then she pulled into the parking lot of the Grand Meridian Hotel. My stomach dropped. Luxury cars, valet parking, business executives, and my wife walking inside alone. I waited almost 2 minutes before following her. She didn't check in. She already knew where she was going, straight to the elevators. She pressed the button for the 7th floor. I took the next elevator. When the doors opened, I saw her walking toward room 714. Then, a man opened the door before she even knocked. "You're finally here," he said. My heart stopped. I stepped behind the ice machine. Before either of them could see me, the door closed. And for the first time in my marriage, I honestly believed I had already lost my wife. I should have walked away. Any reasonable person would have. The evidence was right in front of me. A luxury hotel, a closed door, a strange man, and my wife inside that room. But something stopped me. Not hope, not denial. Just one question. Why would Emily risk throwing away 6 years of marriage? She wasn't careless. If she wanted another man, she would have left first. That's who she was. So instead of leaving, I stayed. The hallway was silent. Every second felt longer than the last. Housekeeping carts rolled past. Guests laughed somewhere down the corridor. Meanwhile, I was standing completely still, trying to convince myself not to knock on that door. Then, I heard laughter. A man's laughter, followed by Emily's voice. I couldn't make out the words, only the sound. My chest tightened. Every terrible possibility rushed into my head at once. My imagination became my worst enemy. That's what fear does. When you don't know the truth, your mind creates one, usually the worst one possible. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then almost 15. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Emily. "Running late. Don't wait for dinner." I stared at the screen. She had just lied to me while standing less than 30 feet away. That hurt more than anything. Not because of where she was. Because she looked me in the eye earlier that day and chose deception. I almost turned around. I almost drove home. But before I could move, the hotel room door opened. I quickly stepped farther down the hallway. Emily walked out first. She wasn't smiling. She looked tense, almost uncomfortable. The man followed behind her. He reached for her arm. She immediately pulled away. Then she said something that completely changed the atmosphere. "I've already told you this conversation is over." His smile disappeared. For the first time that evening, I wasn't looking at my wife. I was studying him. And suddenly, this didn't look like an affair anymore. I stayed exactly where I was. The man took one step closer. "I've spent months trying to help you," he said. You owe me at least one dinner. Emily folded her arms. No. Her answer was calm, firm, final. I was grateful for your business advice, she said, but I made it clear from the beginning that this was never personal. Business advice? I frowned. What business advice? The man sighed. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Emily looked directly at him. No, you're making it inappropriate. There was silence. Then she reached into her handbag. She pulled out a thick envelope. I came here for one reason, she said, to return every gift you sent me. She placed the envelope in his hands. I don't want your watches. I don't want your flowers. And I definitely don't want your attention. My heart skipped a beat. Gifts? Flowers? Watches? None of this made any sense. The man looked annoyed. I can help your company grow. I can introduce you to investors. I can change your life. Emily didn't even hesitate. My husband already gave me the life I wanted. I don't need another one. For the first time that evening, I couldn't breathe, not because I was afraid, because I suddenly realized I had doubted the wrong person. The man laughed quietly. You'll regret this. Emily smiled. No, the only thing I would have regretted was betraying the man waiting for me at home. She turned and walked toward the elevators. The man stood there alone, holding the unopened envelope, watching her leave. I quickly took the stairs before she reached the lobby. By the time she walked outside, I was already sitting in my truck. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from shame. I had followed the woman who had been protecting our marriage while secretly questioning whether she deserved my trust. And now, I had no idea how I was going to tell her. That night, I didn't tell Emily what I had done. I couldn't. How do you admit that you secretly followed the person who had just offended your marriage? She walked through the front door, carrying takeout. She smiled. I'm sorry dinner got delayed. I forced a smile back. It's okay. She looked exhausted, not guilty, just emotionally drained. We ate in silence. Halfway through dinner, she looked at me and asked, Can I tell you something? I nodded. She took a slow breath. A man I've worked with for the past few months crossed a line. I stayed completely still. He started sending gifts. Flowers. Expensive watches. Even invitations to private dinners. I kept refusing. I thought he'd eventually stop. She looked down at her hands. But today I realized he wasn't going to. So I met him to return everything. I already knew, but hearing her choose honesty, without knowing I'd been there, made the guilt even heavier. She reached across the table. I should have told you sooner. I was trying to protect you from unnecessary stress. But hiding it only made things worse. I finally asked, Why didn't you tell me the moment it started? She smiled sadly, because I thought I could handle alone. I didn't want you worrying. I didn't want another man taking up space in our marriage. Those words stayed with me. Another man taking up space in our marriage. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. That's exactly what had happened. Not because of Emily. Because I'd let fear move into a place where trust belonged. I looked at her for several seconds. Then I confessed everything. I told her I'd followed her, that I'd gone to the hotel, that I'd heard the conversation outside room 714. For a moment, she simply stared at me. Not angry, not shocked, just hurt. You thought I was cheating? She asked quietly. I lowered my head. I didn't know what to think. She walked around the table, sat beside me, and held my hand. I wish you had asked me instead. That sentence hit harder than any argument ever could, because she was right. Questions build bridges. Assumptions build walls. That night, we talked longer than we had in months. Not about the man. About us. About why silence had ended our marriage without either of us noticing. And before we went to sleep, Emily said something I'll never forget. Trust isn't believing your partner will never face temptation. It's believing they'll tell you the truth before the lies have a chance to grow. For the first time in days, I slept peacefully. The following Monday, Emily reported everything. The gifts, the messages, the hotel meeting, every detail. Her company immediately cut all business ties with the client. A formal complaint was filed. Within 2 weeks, his email stopped. The deliveries stopped. The phone call stopped. Just like that, he disappeared from our lives. But something else stayed. The lesson. A few months later, Emily and I were sitting on our back porch, coffee in our hands, watching the sun come up. She looked at me and smiled. You know what's funny? What? I asked. She laughed softly. You almost lost your peace. Not because I betrayed you, but because fear convinced you that I already had. I nodded. She was right. The most dangerous lies aren't always told by other people. Sometimes they're created inside our own minds. Fear doesn't need evidence. It only needs uncertainty. And uncertainty grows wherever honest conversations disappear. Looking back now, I don't remember the hotel. I don't remember room 714. I don't even remember the man's face. What I remember is sitting across from my wife that night, choosing honesty over assumptions, because that's the moment our marriage actually became stronger, not when everything was easy, but when we both admitted where we'd gone wrong. People often believe trust means never doubting. It doesn't. Trust means having the courage to bring your doubts into the light before they turn into silent distance. If I had confronted Emily with accusations, I might have damaged the very relationship she was trying to protect. Instead, one honest conversation saved us both. So if you're carrying unanswered questions in your own relationship, don't let fear answer them for you. Ask, listen, talk, because silence gives imagination unlimited room to create stories. And those stories are often far more destructive than the truth. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If this story made you stop and reflect on the importance of trust, communication, and emotional honesty, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that explore the psychology behind real relationships. Until next time, take care of the people who give you reasons to trust, and never let fear speak louder than love.